Hey there, it's Richard Groner with a quick tip for week 2. And this week we're talking about ethics. And ethics is a very important element in anything related to communications, but it's especially important with public relations. And as you're going to find out in this chapter, public relations as a professional field. So it's viewed as a profession, much like doctors and lawyers and people that have strong credibility. Um, Public relations is still in the growing phases there. We don't have accreditation. You will notice that there are several really good public relations groups out there, and they have codes of ethics that they're trying to get people to follow. And of course, people can be members in these organizations, and when they're members, they promise to follow the code of conduct and that kind of thing. But unlike a field like journalism, believe it or not, journalism has a code of conduct and a code of ethics. All journalists are required to follow it. And it deals with things like libel and slander and writing the truth and revealing your sources and that kind of thing. And I know if you spend a lot of time watching the media, you kind of wonder, do they really have it? But they do have code of ethics that they follow. Public relations has more of suggested codes of conduct and suggested ethical practices. But right now in the field, anybody can work in public relations. So you don't have to have a degree in communication. Like that one girl that I posted last week, her first degree was in English and she wound up in public relations. That's pretty common. And unfortunately, over the years, pretty much anybody who was a smooth talker could work in public relations. And it gave the field kind of a reputation as being somewhat shady. So public relations people, and I sort of alluded to this last week, public relations people would spin anything that's bad into good. They'd find the good in it. That's not exactly the truth, and really good ethical public relations professionals do follow those codes of conduct. But since we don't have, for example, we don't have accreditation for people, there isn't a group that you get accreditation or a license that says, hey, you are a certified professional in public relations, you should work in public relations. Right now they let anybody work in there. And so because of that element, there's a big drive among public relations professionals to establish credentials, establish accreditation, have actual, and a lot of colleges now do have actual degrees in public relations, and try to move toward a more professional, more ethical type of viewpoint of public relations. And normally in my face-to-face class, when we're talking about ethics, I put what we're going to talk about towards the end. But I was thinking about it this morning and I thought, I really ought to put this in the beginning, because this is how people typically view public relations, as being kind of a shady group of spin doctors. There's that term spin doctor, which is a very negative term. It's not what public relations really is, but it's a lot of times what people think of it as being, because you see it practiced by a lot of groups out there still. A lot of people will hire really good spin doctors and call them public relations. That's not true public relations. They're not looking out in the best interest of all of their, remember this term, publics that they have to serve. So what we're going to talk about right now is things that we need to do to change the mindset of the general public towards public relations, to look at it as more as ethical, credentialed, professional type of profession. And one of the things that hurts us in that realm, and I'm probably going to mess this up, I did. One of the things that hurts us in this realm is careerist views. So you've got a lot of people who are working in public relations right now who are in it because they were fast talkers. They could spin a story, whatever you said, and you're going to see an example of this in a minute. Whatever you said, you could spin it into the positive. And so they got the job. And they're more concerned with what we call careerist views, careerist values. So they value the things that keep them in the job. and keep their jobs secure. And that means they don't necessarily follow professional ethical codes. They follow the values that keep them in their particular job and keep them employed. Yes, you want to keep your job, obviously, right? But you want to have some honor in that job. You want to practice in an ethical manner that does look at the good for all of your publics. And you're sort of the Jiminy Cricket of an organization. You tell the organization when they're right and wrong. You tell the public when what the organization is doing is right and wrong. You're the middle person that controls, the viewpoint of the organization with all of the different kinds of publics, and you have a responsibility to maintain a strong ethical value. Careerist views tend to, if they have a choice between professional ethics that might hurt them in a job position or job position values that might make them look less ethical, a lot of careerist people will take the less ethical approach because it saves their job. And you don't always want to do that. If you have any sort of credibility in you, any sort of belief and moral fiber, you want to move towards these codes of conduct and the ethical codes that these groups have. So a really good example of this is a movie called Thank You for Smoking. And it's actually about a guy who is the PR person for a particular cigarette brand. And this is the trailer from that movie. This guy, keep in mind, is PR, and you're going to see him eating with a couple of other, I think it's alcohol and firearms PR people. And they're fully aware of the negative side of the products that they're hawking. But watch how he approaches it. He's demonstrating careerist views, not an ethical approach to his particular profession.
I get paid to talk.
What do you talk about?
I speak on behalf of cigarettes.
My mommy says that cigarettes kill.
Now, is your mommy a doctor?
No.
Well, she doesn't exactly sound like a credible expert now, does she?
Yeah, we call ourselves the Mod Squad. MOD, Merchants of Death. We're lobbyists for the tobacco, alcohol, and firearms industries.
How many alcohol-related deaths a year?
Well, does that-
100,000? That's what, 270 a day? A tragedy.
I front an organization that kills 1,200 people a day.
Dad, I want to see what you do.
The message Hollywood needs to send out is smoking is cool. You can put the sex back into cigarettes.
Get a flight to LA, I'll get you a meeting with Hollywood super agent Jeff McGowan.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring your dad in now. Is there anything I can get you, like an orange juice or a coffee or a Red Bull?
No thanks.
Okay.
But what we need is a smoking role model, a real winner.
Indiana Jones meets Jerry Maguire.
Right, on 2 packs a day.
This spring, don't hide the truth.
We don't sell Tic Tacs, we sell cigarettes. And they're cool, available, and addictive. The job is almost done for us.
Just filter it.
The #1 killer in America is cholesterol, and here comes Senator Finister, who's clogging the nation's arteries with Vermont cheddar cheese.
The great state of Vermont will not apologize for its cheese.
What happens when you're wrong?
See, Joey, that's the beauty of argument. Because if you argue correctly, you're never wrong.
This is a heated issue. Nick, do you have a question?
How on earth would Big Tobacco profit off of the loss of this young man? It's in our best interest to keep Robin alive and smoking.
Have you heard of a reporter named
Heather Holloway. My other interviews have pinned you as a mass murderer, bloodsucker, pimp, profiteer, and my personal favorite, Yuppie Mephistopheles.
I'm a man of the people.
Rock on, Kennedy.
Your family now. Tobacco takes care of its own.
Michael Jordan plays ball. Charles Manson kills people. I talk.
Thank you for smoking.
Sony has a futuristic sci-fi movie they're looking to make.
Cigarettes in space.
It's the final frontier, Nick.
But wouldn't they blow up in an all-oxygen environment?
Probably. But it's an easy fix. One line of dialogue. Thank God we invented the, whatever device.
That's kind of how a lot of people view public relations people, is how that guy performs. And you can see him doing careerist type values. You know, is your mommy a doctor? No. Well, then she doesn't sound like she really knows what she's talking about, does she? Or, why are we be interested in this guy dying? We want to keep him alive and smoking. See, he's spinning everything, and that creates a very bad view of public relations. We also need to work on getting people who, oh goodness, who don't represent products and values that clash with their personal values. A lot of people, and that guy's a really good example in the thank you for smoking. That guy's a good example of he'll work for anybody for any amount of money to say anything you want him to say. That creates a bad view of public relations. That's one of the reasons why we asked you to fill out the survey. Pick something that you are interested in. And those of you who filled that out, let me know, hey, I'm interested in this particular area. Let's put you in it, because it's a lot easier for you to be a public relations professional in an area you believe in, supporting a product you believe in, or issues or companies that you believe in, than to give you something you hate or something that you don't believe in and say, here, you be the public relations person for that. That creates careerist views, and we need to get away from that. We need to get more towards professionalism, professional ethical code following, and people who elevate the profession. You also have to know where to draw the line, and there's always a line, and everybody understands what ethics is, and it's a question of values and morals. You have to understand, where are your values and morals? Where is the line you will not cross? Everybody has that line that they will not cross. What is that line for that particular issue that you're talking about? And does it align with what the company does? So if you're completely against smoking and you think the line is, I'm not going to even promote smoking or anything like that, then you don't go to work for a cigarette company or a tobacco company, right? But a lot of people will do that. They'll bend their values in order to get the job. We've got to get away from that and get people who truly believe in the products that they're selling, so that everything lines back up. Basically, what you want to do is, if you can't justify it to your mother, don't do it. That's an excellent, just in general things in life, but from a PR standpoint, if you couldn't look your mother in the eye and tell her something and honestly believe what you're telling her, then you shouldn't be doing it for the organization that you represent or the product that you represent, that kind of thing. That's a really good question to ask yourself when you're working in a public relations field. So I wanted to talk about that briefly, because a lot of this type of stuff has caused public relations to have sort of a bad connotation. I know when I was working in public relations, sometimes people would say, oh, what do you do? And I'd say, oh, I work for a public relations firm. Oh, you're one of those people that makes everything sound good even when it's not. And I said, well, there are people in the field that do that, unfortunately, but no, that's not the way I approach public relations. And then I talk a little bit about the code of ethics and that kind of thing. And I was a member, while I was active in the field, of public relations group that had a code of conduct. And so you want to do that. And I'll add some more stuff about ethics later, but ethics is, as you'll find in the chapter, incredibly important, both to understand what your ethics are, to understand what the organization you're working for's ethics are, and make them match up. All right. I'll talk to you later.